So these are going to be double problems where we're going to have two people, two towers, two ships, two something that you're looking at. And therefore you'll have two different angles of elevation or depression. And it looks like I don't have any graphics, so I'm going to be drawing my plane. And it's not going to be pretty. Pilot is flying at an altitude of 2.7 kilometers. Sights two control towers directly in front of her. So let's go ahead and draw a plane. Don't judge. I'm sure someone in here is worse than that. Or equally as bad. Okay, here's our ground. And again, if you're struggling with the angle of depression, which is the harder one, I highly suggest that you draw both horizontal lines in to begin with. So we have our ground. Also draw an imaginary horizontal line that the plane would be traveling. Sights two control towers. Now, since the towers are going to essentially be flat because we don't know how tall they are, that's not going to add into the problem here, I'm just going to put like tower 1 and tower 2 instead of drawing a picture for them because they don't actually have a height given, so we're not going to account for that in the problem. The angle of depression to the base of one tower is 37. The angle of depression to the other tower is 58. So let's go ahead and draw in lines connecting to tower 1 and tower 2. Now this is where some of you will struggle to know where do I put what angle. Okay? Well, remember, an angle of depression goes from a horizontal down to a line of sight. So we have this angle, and then we also have this whole angle, this whole thing. Okay, you can tell which one goes where by their sizes. So the first one I drew is definitely smaller than the second one because this would be this big angle. So the smaller one is 37, which means that would go here. The larger one, which is this whole thing, will be 58. Now, we need to copy those angles down into their alternate interior angles spots so that we then have them inside of the triangle. So if this is 37, we just have to travel down the transversal and put our 37 degrees down here by tower 2. The 58 is this big angle which touches this transversal, so we'll travel down its transversal and put our 58 here. All right, what do they want us to find? What is the distance between the two towers? So at the end of the problem, I want to find out what that is. What do you think I would need to do in order to find out that little piece? Because this piece is not part of a right triangle. It's not a whole leg. It's part of a leg. So what do you think I could do to find out that portion? Amir?
Find the length of the two triangles on this triangle.
Perfect. You need to find the lengths of both right triangles. So this one and the whole one, and then you'll subtract them. So this is where you might want to define some variables. Let's call this x. And then let's call the whole side y. And then at the end of the problem, we will subtract y minus x to find out our missing portion, which if you want, you could call z. But all right, what trig functions are we going to use to find x? We're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent. If you're not sure, label your sides. 58, go across. This is my opposite. X would be my adjacent. Joseph? We're going to use tangent. So we'll have tangent of 58 equals 2.7 divided by x. Solve for x. Undo division with multiplication. Undo multiplication of tan with division of tangent. Now, do not round this answer, as this is not your final answer. This is just part of the answer that will get you there. So, oh, this calculator's not going to work. Let's do it on 2.7 divided by tan, 58, let's hope I'm in degrees. I am. So we will get 1.687, at least write that many decimals. But you want to be really careful since we're going to subtract the answers. If you round the first answer and subtract it with another rounded answer, then you could be off by like a tenth or so. So you do not round until the end of the problem. 1.687, 14725. All right, now we got to find y. Y is also going to be a tangent function because this is opposite and adjacent. So we'll have tan 37 equals 2.7 divided by y. Again, we'll multiply by y. Divide by tangent. Yes, you can. And this will get me 3.58, 3021018. And then at the end, we are going to subtract these numbers. Now, since you already have the 3.58, etc. sitting in your calculator if you typed it in, you don't have to type it in again, just hit subtract, and then you will have to type in that whole answer that we had. Now, sometimes if you round it and you subtract, you still get the same answer as if you didn't round. But occasionally you will be off, and if you are off, you'll lose a half point. So just be careful. We should get 1.89587, rounded to the nearest tenth, does get me 1.9. Again, we could call that z if we wanted to. 1.9 kilometers. So as I said, these problems will be a little bit more challenging. Not super hard, but they do have double the work because we have to do two different trig functions. All right, we have one more. Two people looking up at something. Carol and Tom are standing apart from one another. From Carol's position, the angle of elevation to the top of the building is 65. From Tom's position, the angle of elevation to the top of the building is 49.5. If the building is 50 meters tall, how far apart are Carol and Tom? So let's go ahead and sketch a picture. Now, it does matter where you put Carol and Tom because of the angles. Okay, so let's draw the building. Who do you think comes first? Carol, her angle of elevation is 65, and Tom's angle of elevation is 49.5. Carol? Carol comes first. Why? And when I say first, do you mean here or here? First in the list?
No, she's closer to the building.
Yes, she is going to be closer to the building. Okay, so for example, looking at the flag up there, okay? If I walk back here, the further I get away, the less I have to look up because I can see it from a distance. When you get closer to something and you want to look up at it, you kind of have to tilt your head. Just think about it in a movie theater and you get in the first row, you have to tilt your head to look up. So the closer you are to something, the bigger the angle. So Carol will have the bigger angle, 65 degrees. Tom will have the smaller angle, which is 49.5. And they do tell us that the building is 500 meters tall. Same strategy as before. We want to find out how far apart are Tom and Carol. Just this little piece. So exactly what Amira told us to do on the last one. We're going to find this leg and the whole leg, and we're just going to subtract them. So again, you may want to use variables. X, Y, or X and Y and Z. It doesn't matter where you label. And if you want to put another variable here, you can, Z, which to get Z, we will subtract Y minus X. See if you guys can complete this problem, again, without rounding, and then we will go over the answer before I send you off to work on. Subtract. So our final answer will be that Z equals Y minus X. So you actually can take y and subtract x in your calculator, and that way there's no rounding. Now you will have to put parentheses around it. So 500 divided by tan 49.5. Close your parentheses once and close them again, which would be this. And then you can subtract x, which is 500, and in parentheses, divided by tan 65. And you'll get your answer without having to write down any decimals. You should get 193.886, and the directions don't tell us what to round to, so you could make the call. Let's just go ahead and round to the nearest tenth, which would be 193.9. meters. If you did it piece by piece, you would have got the answers for x was 233.1538 something, and z was, or y was 427.0403, and then we do subtract those. Okay. But did everyone see how I put it into the calculator, subtraction wise, and you can just do that all at once. You don't have to write out all your decimals. All right, the rest of the class period is yours then to work on worksheet number 2. We do have a quiz coming up this Friday. Remember, this is one of the last quizzes. Well, this is the last quiz before the end of the 9 weeks. We will have a quarterly exam though too, so those are our 2 big grades. The answers to the homework are on the back. So if you flip to the back, all of the answers are at the bottom, but they're not in order. So like once you solve number 1, let's suppose you get 2.0, go on the back, and when you see 2.0, cross it off, you'll know you got it right. If you get an answer, and when you go and check it on the back, it's not there, you did something wrong. So try to go back and self-check, and then that way you'll know if you're getting them correct or incorrect.